Hey, sixth grade, this is Mr. James. So it's going to just be our video for the week. I know on Monday, it was a video that I didn't make. It was a video I wanted you guys to watch just to learn something and see a little bit about what we'll be doing this week. So this week, we're looking at overcoming temptation. Now, if we look at what we looked at last week, remember we should be very aware of the areas in our own lives in which Satan might tempt us. So let's move forward and see what we're looking at. So again, our verse for this week is Romans 8:37. It says, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." That we are not held by temptation, but we have, because of Jesus, because of God sending Jesus, we can conquer, we can beat the temptations we may feel. So Romans 8:37 is our memory verse. Again, please, this week we are doing this. Anything highlighted in yellow, please make sure to write down in your notes. All right, so as we're looking at getting started, we're looking at some character traits. We want to look and see that wisdom includes knowing ourselves and our own weaknesses. It's wise to prepare for Satan's attacks and decide beforehand how we will handle these possible temptations. So, character traits. Well, discernment is the ability to see these things, to see things as they really are. Wisdom gained by applying the knowledge of God. One of the important things that young people and myself we need to learn in order to have victory over Satan's temptations is to discern the difference between right and wrong. So I want to ask you guys a question and hear your thoughts. Think of 2 or 3 activities that you might do and which are regular things that you do every single day, but what you think have very little value. Then I want you to come up with a constructive activity to replace some of these useless activities. So maybe one of those activities is every day when you get done with school, right? You finish up school for the day, maybe it's easy for you just to get on your phone and do something, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or anything else. It's a rather useless activity, not important, but you do it anyway. So think of a way that maybe you could change that with something more beneficial to you. So maybe, like myself, it's easy for me to get home and get on my phone after school and try and waste time. Instead, maybe I could choose to read a book. I could choose to go on a walk or work out or even go to the beach. And that would be much more beneficial for me to be outside or me to read than just to sit on my phone. One verse, as you guys are examining things in your life, I want you guys to remember the verse Philippians 4:8. You can also do this same activity with characteristics of people in your life, something that you want to have in a friend. So I want a friend that's trustworthy. But I need to remind myself and you guys that in order for us to want something like that in a good friend, we should have those characteristics in us. So if I want a friend that's going to be truthful, I need to be truthful for me and for other people. So let's look at Philippians 4:8. Philippians 4:8. Which says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." This is what we need to be thinking. This is what we need on our minds as we're examining our life, examining how can we discern what is good and what is wrong, and begin applying what God is teaching us. So overcoming temptation. That's what we're looking at. Now, Satan's very smart. He knows how to tempt us in ways that will reveal our weaknesses. So to begin discerning, think. Think about yourself. In what areas do you think Satan might try to tempt you? What times do you think you're most mean or grouchy? Is it maybe when you're hungry? Is it when you haven't gotten enough sleep? Well, a discerning thought, a discerning person might say, well, if I get grumpy quicker when I haven't slept, I need more sleep. So we've spent some time studying Satan because Jesus wants us to be very aware of this enemy. In Luke 22:31, Christ was talking to Simon Peter and explaining what Satan would try to do. We're going to look at the rest of that story in Luke 22:54 through 62 and examine the story. Then, seizing him, they led him away, took him to the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance, and when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. He looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned, looked right at Peter, straight at Peter. Peter remembered the word that the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will denounce me, disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. Here it's clear that Simon Peter, was tempted to deny Jesus, and he was not discerning. He did not know his weaknesses, and he gave in to those weaknesses. So God's promise for you. We're going to read 1 Corinthians 10:12 through 14. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fail or fall. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so you can endure it. The life principle we see is that the Christian never needs to fear Satan. If we resist him instead of listening and obeying Satan, he will leave us. You see, God never tempts you, but he always allows Satan to tempt you for a purpose. He wants you to trust him more. Now, one thing we looked at when it came to our video on Monday, or our work on Monday, is we began studying the Christian's armor, God's armor for us. We're going to work through Ephesians 6, and we're going to discuss what this means. We're going to explain some of the important parts of it, and you guys have read and worked through some of this homework already, hopefully. Well, Ephesians 6:10 through 18 says, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can make your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth, to be truthful, buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness that protects your heart, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. We are ready to share the gospel with others. In addition to this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish the flaming arrows of the evil one. It's through our faith in God that we do not give into temptation. And lastly, take the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Remember your salvation and be prepared to use the word of God to defeat the enemy. And pray. in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. So the gospel we see is the one of redemption. We see that we are redeemed because of Jesus' death, resurrection, and then ascension into heaven. We see this as we get to put on the armor of God, that we do not have to be afraid of temptation or afraid of Satan, but that because of what Jesus did for us and what God did by sending him, we can walk with courage and boldness. So your homework, I'll be posting about it, but it'll have to do a little bit with what we talked about. I hope you guys have a great day. Let me know if you have questions, 6th grade, but I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye, guys.